So I'm happy to answer any questions.
In that level of creativity, like you're saying, usually people are traditional, don't break out of the box. How did you get them to move?
You know, actually, that's a very good question. And the way you do that is through the research. You know, if you have done research and you can walk into your executive or your boss's office and say, here's every question we asked, and let's look statistically at what the responses are, it makes a pretty compelling argument. And then actually, if you can say, and I have a marketing campaign that actually is coming out of the research. You know, what we've learning is our potential patrons are saying this is what they're looking for, and this campaign answers that question. Most executives then have the confidence, and you have the confidence then to move forward. I wouldn't recommend it if you just sort of blindly think, let's do something, you know, out of the box. It is important to find out the truth.
In my last place where I worked, I was there for 5 years, and I was the creative performing arts director, but I was the whole department. What was my business was to really do theatrical productions, and I did pretty good for 5 years. I built that great, but what I lacked was business. You know, I didn't know how to build that campaign. Like, we paid for everything, and that's why the program is gone. So I'm like, I didn't know how to raise the money. I didn't know how to do the campaign. I'm creative enough to think about marketing, but not the campaign. You get what I'm saying? Like, what do you suggest for artists to learn the business? Do I need to go back to school? Is there a book? Is there a workshop?
You know, actually, if you're talking about just marketing and the advertising, one of the best ways is what you're doing today, which is networking. There are many organizations, other not-for-profits. You could go to not-for-profit radio stations, KCRW, KPCC, who have staff members who are very knowledgeable, who, and actually it might be interesting to sit down with some media buyers to talk to the group about what are the basics of media buying. I think actually it's possible to learn the basics through mentoring, through finding someone who can really explain the basics. It's not rocket science these days. And actually, I think nowadays with what's happening with Facebook and all the online capacity, it's actually working to our advantage because it's come back into the hands of the organization in a way that's very effective.
So for a brand new arts organization, what do you think is the best way or most important in establishing a brand identity or getting your name out into the ether?
Well, I think the first thing is to really understand what it is that you have that you're delivering to your customer, and then understanding who your customer is, and being really clear about that. And it's all about, it sounds so, I was just at a arts conference yesterday. It's talking about relationship building, support for an organization, whether it's for fundraising support or selling tickets. It's really about a relationship, a very personal relationship with your customers, and continuing to reach out to them and talk to them and build an emotional connection with your organization. The fundamentals of that, and this isn't very sexy at all, have to do with database development. It's probably the most important tool any arts organization has, is a very robust database with all the information about all your customers, a plan to touch your customers frequently. I think what happens a lot is we get busy. If you're selling tickets, they buy a ticket and they don't hear from you again until the next year when you ask them to renew their subscription or buy for the next performance. In this environment, that's not going to work. You really need to be emailing them, offering value, so that by the time your next renewal cycle comes around, they think to themselves, well, this has been great, I can't let this go. It's about database, it's about relationship building. This is really not sexy and sort of the down and dirty secret, I think, of performing arts. If you can afford it and your organization is large enough, it's about telemarketing. A service call someone calling people up and talking to them. It's all about personalization.
Hi. I really like what you said about searching for truth. And as far as research goes, that's generally a very expensive endeavor. So I was just wondering, as far as some less expensive research methods, I know there's things like SurveyMonkey, et cetera, but as far as sort of a multi-pronged approach to finding out more about your audience or whatever you're interested in, if you have any suggestions?
I have been so impressed with SurveyMonkey and Zoomerang, truthfully, for a couple of reasons. One is, as I said, it's inexpensive to the not-for-profit user. The response rates from online surveys are phenomenal. You're talking, when you do an online survey, you'll get 80% response rate. For some reason, people just love to have their opinion asked. And actually, back to the relationship part of it, that survey also acts as a relationship building aspect. They want to tell you about why they like you and about themselves. So the wonderful thing about SurveyMonkey and Zoomerang, of course, is you can use all that back-end cross-tabbing and find out a little bit more about ages and demographics and what each portion of your audience is thinking. So I really recommend that. Yes, focus groups are very expensive, but other ways that you can find out information is through on-site surveys, intercepts. If you're a museum or if you're a performing arts organization, put a little survey in your program or ask your volunteers to ask people questions. Yourself, attend your events, ask people questions, listen to what they're saying. You'd be amazed at how much information you sort of derive from that. I think one of the most important things I learned from just standing in the lobby and listening to people is in the performing arts, the ticket purchase transaction is actually all about the seat. Did you see what a great seat I got? I got great seats tonight. Did you see what great seats we have? There's a connection there. As a sales tool, it's very important in terms of valuing those seats. So SurveyMonkey, online surveys, intercepts, talk to people, hang out in your venue, your Facebook comments, Yelp comments, everywhere that you can actually encourage people to come back and comment on the experience and put it all together in a picture will emerge.
I'm really intrigued by your idea of the core values, and it makes me think, where did the core values of my organization come from? Are those sort of a top-down thing? But also, do those evolve? And as emerging arts leaders or middle management professionals, how much can we influence or evolve that core value for our organization?
Actually, I think as a middle manager, what's interesting is to sort of unearth it, because in every organization, everything comes from the top down. And you'll find that the culture of the organization has certain qualities that it's imbued with those qualities. There may be some negative ones you discover too, and it might be worth sort of finding ways to unravel that and understand what those are. Ultimately, what we're all searching for is the core values that you're going to be able to communicate externally to get support. So you can find them out at the middle management level. I don't think you have much opportunity to change them, but at least you can deal with finding out what really matters. And what I was trying to do is differentiate it from, we repeat our mission statements a lot, and people have them on the back of their business cards, but that's not, in my opinion, what's going to actually get someone to actually give you money or support the organization. Does that make sense?
You spoke about offering value to customers, and now there's so many opportunities, with Gold Star or Groupon or sites like that, to reach a really large audience, a new audience, but then how do you convert them to regular visitors or regular attendees?
I'm really enthusiastic about Groupon. I'm really enthusiastic about Gold Star. Actually, Gold Star did a great thing for the Autry recently. We had a big festival, and they offered tickets free. We had 700 people respond through Gold Star to come to our event. So to answer your question, now it's my job, once those people are there, to make sure when they come through the door, I get their email address at the very least. If I can, to get their snail mail address. Then I need to email them a thank you and a follow-up. I need to see if I can encourage them to get onto my email list. I need to find a way to send value directly to them the next time. And now they're mine. They belong to me now. And I can continue to build that relationship over time. It's labor intensive.
You spoke a little bit about sharing with the Ford in order to increase your camp. I feel like partnerships are not very big in the arts community. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on what your approach was in building that partnership and what the successes were and what some of the challenges might have been from that.
The partnership with?
The Ford.
Oh, the Ford. Right. Well, actually, the partnership with the Ford was a wonderful collaboration. The Ford, in their wisdom, actually approaches a different arts organization every summer and asked to partner to provide some on-site, hands-on activities for kids at their kids' concerts. So in this case, it was the Ford coming to us and saying, would you like to work with us on this? And we said, yeah, that would be great. Another example, actually, that is sort of more illustrative is recently at the Autry, we opened an exhibition about the art of Siqueiros. And the Museum of Latin American Art in Long Beach also opened a Siqueiros exhibition. And, it didn't take too much thought to pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, you're doing this and we're doing this. Well, shouldn't we be cross-promoting and working together? The beauty of that was Bank of America, who was interested in being a sponsor, suddenly said, wow, now that you've decided to collaborate and do this together, we want to sponsor both your exhibitions. And because of this added value, they not only gave each of our institutions the cash contribution they were planning to, but they added $30,000 of additional marketing materials. We created collaborative flyers that we put into Bank of America banks. I guess we still have banks. We were able to do so much more, and Bank of America was so much more willing to support it because it had a bigger reach and more importance. I have to say, I've worked in a number of cities, and I find actually the arts community in Los Angeles to be amazingly collaborative and cooperative. We're very supportive of one another. I can't imagine you picking up the phone and calling any one of us and someone not saying, we'll help in any way we can.
I just actually wanted to draw a quick connection between Nick's presentation and Joan's. For those of you who missed Laura Zucker's presentation on how to increase your compensation, she really wanted us to think about what the values of the organization that we work for or that we aspire to work for are, so that we can align those with our values and our assets. And so to be able to really talk about with your employer what the values are of the organization and say, hey, if I can get you X in a year, let's talk about a salary negotiation. Let's talk about increasing my compensation. And so I think it was really nice that both of you kind of touched on a little bit of negotiation, a little bit of sussing out the values of your organization, because ultimately you can use that as a tool to increase your compensation, perhaps.
Thank you. Okay.